These are the items that I have installed throughout the time I have owned the Yamaha Ténéré 700, and this is just little compilations of my little experiences with the different items. I've been riding around with 3 different windscreens on my Yamaha Ténéré 700, and they all have their benefits. So if you're going at slow speeds, the Yamaha is great, but if you're going, say, on country roads and you need a little bit more protection, the Puig does an excellent job. And here in the deep south of the United States, there is a lot of bugs in the summertime, and even when going at a high speed, say interstate motorway speeds, 80 miles per hour, 120 kilometers an hour. I'm 6'2" and use a 20mm taller rally seat. I don't get any bugs whatsoever hitting the windscreen of the helmet itself. They all get caught up by the huge windscreen. But then if you go on higher speed roads, like I mentioned, the interstate and motorways, and you're going, then you really need the protection of the Givi screen. It will make the trip way more pleasant. The downside of the Givi is that you have to look through the screen, not over it. So if it's raining and it's dark, I don't really like it. So my go-to screen for most of my riding has been the Puig. On the crossbar I have a Garmin Zumo XT mounted to a Rally Raid bracket. There are multiple benefits to using a separate GPS versus the one that's on your phone. Probably the biggest is that if you take a detour, you do not have to sit and listen to Siri trying to make you crazy by saying proceed to the route. The Garmin Zumo automatically just picks up and calculates a new route for you. Also, you can sit in the home in front of your computer and make a route with a whole bunch of little waypoints. Not something you can not do on, say, a Google map and transfer it to your phone. Also, the Zumo XT shows you the distance to the nearest cities in a little side panel, which is pretty nice. Staying warm and dry makes the ride way more pleasant. So when I ride in the wintertime, I have a set of heated grips, and I've been very pleased with them. Usually, say if it's 5 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, I just have it on number 2 of 3 settings. So it's highly recommended. Buying the cable kit from the heated grips to the accessory ports up under the painted front panels makes it a lot easier to install. I bought the anti-wobble brackets in order to improve the GPS display when I go on rough roads, because then it could be pretty bad. But the brackets help just as much on paved roads. It's the equivalent with them without the brackets is kind of like taking the lens on your camera and just going from unsharp to sharp. The amount of rechargeable devices most people have today is pretty insane, but it's a good thing you don't have to buy batteries all the time. So adding a USB charger on your motorcycle, it's a pretty good thing. The only downside here is that you have to remove a lot of items in order to be able to put it in the designated spot. I've always been a big fan of auxiliary lights, and when I lived back in Northern Europe, it was always to extend the high beams so you could see where you were going when you were driving out in the country. Here in the deep south, you just have to reset your mind completely, because every single time you go out for a drive or a ride or a walk or a run, you will see people texting, Facebooking, whatever hell they're doing with their phones. So down here, I add lights in order to become more visible. I have some more auxiliary lights I'm going to pop up in the front, and I will probably buy some lights to put in the rear. It's just, I don't know, I'm just shaking my head in bewilderment here. The Denali DR1 lights, they are connected to one of the auxiliary ports mounted under one of the painted panels up front, and it also has a two setting, a high and a low setting on the lights. I do notice that with more lights up front, cars coming out from side roads, they tend to wait at a higher frequency than they did before I added auxiliary lights. Just remember to adjust the lights properly against the wall, and also if you don't want to become room temperature too quickly, it's a highly recommended addition. If you use your motorcycle a lot, there's a pretty big chance that you might just drop the bike over. It might just be in your yard, or it might be out in the rough. But having a set of upper crash bar is a pretty good way to protect the painted panels on the bike. I had a secondary reason why I bought them and installed them, and that was to install the auxiliary lights. I like these upper crash bars, they have protected my painted panels, but I have to say I'm disappointed with the so-called Teutonic standards, because it has been totally missing from both Touratech products and Hepco and Becker. A sander stand is one of the more useful items that you can install on your motorcycle, because it makes chain maintenance and working on your tires or wheels, whatever, so much easier. I would also not buy any other stand than the original Yamaha OEM stands, because it's made to completely different standards than anything else I've seen on the market. And buying one of the cheap Chinese knockoffs, that's just plain wrong. It's a highly recommended addition. A heavy-duty skid plate is a pretty nice addition to the motorcycle. The original Yamaha skid plate is made out of a forged 2.5mm aluminum sheet, and the one I chose is made the same way, but it's made out of a 4mm aluminum sheet, and it's much bigger. With this one, when you're riding slowly or just standing still, then the fan of the radiator kicks in all the time. So I might have to penetrate it a little bit to get some more airflow, especially around the exhaust pipe. But all in all, I really like this plate, and I really like the look of it. For the Yamaha Ténéré 700, there is roughly 12.5 skid plates on the market, so there should be a skid plate for any taste. Hard versus soft luggage is a little bit like Ford versus Chevy. I had both, and I kind of like hard cases better than soft, because I have electronics like camera gear, laptop, etc. in the cases, and they're more protected in case of the bike falling over. The Yamaha rear rack does not really work with the side cases from any of the manufacturers out there. So of course there had to be some cutting, drilling, grinding and repainting in order to get it all work. But it's all working pretty good now. I like the rawness of the aluminum, but as an afterthought I should have bought the Dolomiti range, because it talks better, in lack of a better word, to the forms or the shape of the skid plate with the rounded edges. I'm very pleased with the Givi products. They're made to higher standards than their German counterparts and sold at more reasonable prices. This is the seat that comes on the Sky Blue Rally Edition. That's only sold in Europe, not in the United States, unfortunately. And this seat is a one-piece seat, and it's 20mm taller than the standard seat. With a one-piece seat, it's easier to access the area underneath the front part of the seat where the battery is located, so it's easier to store tools, whatever, a Snickers bar or whatever you want underneath the seat. Also, this seat has enough space for the owner's manual and the tools in the little pocket provided underneath the seat. And if you remove the two little foam strips, you can pop on some more tools, which is a good thing. This little bit taller seat is a little bit more agreeable to sit on for long journeys compared to the original seat. And the longest journeys I've had so far is a little over 9 hours in just pure riding, not including the brakes. That's of course riding in one day. This is the original Yamaha rack for the Ténéré 700, and it is extremely well built. The little tabs on the back, they're made to fit the Yamaha top case, but they also fit a wide variety of Givi top cases because Givi makes the aluminum luggage for the Ténéré 700. The two big grab handles are equal good for passengers sitting in the back, so they have something to grab onto, or if you're just going to move your bike around and put your bike on the center stand, that you have something to hold on to. And they make a huge difference when you're moving your bike around. And just the handles alone is worth having the rack. These are the German Hepco and Becker handlebar guards. I like the clean lines, no big blaring logos, and you use them in addition with the original plastic guards that are mounted behind. I did not like the way Hepco and Becker fastened the guard, so I had to modify it. I tried first one thing because I had some flanged nuts, but I didn't really like it. So then I used a countersink and I countersunk the fasteners, and that looked a heck of a lot better than the Hepco and Becker solution. The bolts that came with the kit, they were not able to be torqued to the required 21 foot-pounds, so I had to buy some new ones, so I opted for stainless steel. So just keep that in mind if you buy this kit. As with some of the other German parts on the bike, there's too much of a good enough attitude, and they've completely forgotten there's something called Teutonic engineering, which is both sad and frustrating. I installed these soft grips in order to try to minimize vibrations, but I found that what really helps the most is really just to lower the speed, and instead of going on the, say, interstate or motorways, if you can ride on secondary roads where you can keep, say, the RPM around 5,000 versus higher, that has way more to do with vibrations on the bike than anything. Also doing some light exercises, that opening your hand, bringing it back into a fist a couple of times at regular intervals, makes also a huge difference. So in other words, preventative maintenance for your hands, that's the clue. I'm not a big fan of tank bags because they kind of ruin the lines of the motorcycle, but they absolutely have their benefits. Going on trips, I like to have an overview map, and the pocket on this case is big enough to fit a letter size, or in Europe A4 size in portrait mode. Also, it's a great place to have some wet wipes and paper towels and other just common items that you use fairly often. It just makes it a lot easier just to open the little tank bag versus having to go back and open one of the cases or soft luggage. And with storage space, it's kind of a little bit like an attic. You can never have enough storage. This bag is waterproof, it holds about 20 liters, but it takes a little bit of fiddling to get the bag to sit right, because if the bag sits too far forward, then it interferes with the view of the cell phone if you have the cell phone mounted on top of where the handlebar is mounted. As with the other Givi products, this company actually care about what they're doing, which of course is good. This is by far the best cell phone holder ever used. I've tried many over the years. This cell phone holder holds the phone very securely in place in all four corners, and it has rubber padding on both the flat surface and on the little corner brackets. I've driven it over some pretty rough terrain, and it's never ever fallen out. This cell phone holder is really meant to be just mounted straight onto the handlebar. You can either mount it vertically or horizontally, but that's a little bit too easy, so I chose to mount on top of a RallyeForm handlebar mount. So I just had to drill and tap and just countersink a little bit, and now it's mounted straight into the middle of the handlebars. I got this Givi top case because it fits onto the little tabs on the original Yamaha rear rack. There's enough space in the box for a full face helmet, even the ones that has the little lid on it, like the Arai XD4/Tour X4. It is very easy to mount the box onto the top rack. You just align the two little tabs and you just push it into place until you hear it click. In order to remove the box, you need to use the key, which is a good thing, but it's also very easy to do. As mentioned many times before, I'm very happy with the Givi products, and you actually get what you pay for, in very stark contrast to the German manufacturers and their good enough attitude. So what parts should you get? It really depends where you live and how you use your bike. Say if you live in a cold area, the heated grips, that's a no-brainer. The sander stand is kind of expensive, but I wouldn't buy any other than the Yamaha one. And considering how often you have to do maintenance on your chain, how often you have to oil it and clean it, that's like probably one of the most important pieces you can add onto your bike. Here in the deep south United States, the auxiliary light is really a life-saving device. So it's unfortunately necessary. If you take a lot of trips, especially long trips, the Garmin Zumo XT mounted onto the Rally Raid bracket, that's really a no-brainer. But then it really starts piling on, because then you want the anti-wobble brackets, and then you're down a slippery slope. Good luck on your accessories if you add any. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, have a good ride. More videos to follow.